Welcome to a chat to myself, a ritual, informal space where I chat to myself and you may be chatting to yourself at the same time. How to be happy. Big one, isn't it? It's a big one, how to be happy. Um, for me, my life has always been about being happy, about trying to be happy. Um, I realized that the only way to be happy is to do what you feel that makes sense to you. Doesn't matter what other people tell you. Doesn't matter what the society is telling you. Um, it involves making hard choices. It involves being creative. It involves letting go. Lots of letting go, which can be very scary. And if this is triggering you, that means that there's probably stuff that you need to work through. Um, it is what it is. It's a journey. It's a powerful, beautiful, very rewarding journey. Um, but how are you happy? How can you be happy? Um, as usual, you need to be specific. Happy is such a big word. What does that mean? A big feeling, oh my God, happiness. How am I to achieve happiness? Am I supposed to achieve happiness even? Am I allowed to do that? Am I capable of feeling happiness? Do I deserve it? All of these questions may pop up, and they usually have to do with your unfulfilled need. Um, Something that I talked about in my first chat, and it's the basis of my Method Campus work. How do I know that I'm making the right choices for myself? I chose to be an actor because I am an actor. I just realized what I was, what I wanted to be, and I made that choice to make it happen. I want to be an actor, so I'll do it. But that meant sacrifices. That being an actor means you have less stability in your life. For example, it means you have it's not going to be as easy to live. You're not going to be full of money for sure. um, it's a more difficult life compared to others, and if your dream life includes buying a house and being the provider of your family, it's tricky to be an actor, right? So it is choices and it is sacrifices that it includes. Plus, being an actor, it's not definitely um, all roses. It's hardly any roses sometimes. Um, Lots of rejection that you have to be able to deal with. Auditions. Um, it's very, very difficult. It's a very difficult life. It is. Um, it is quite funny when people who have no clue think that being an actor is like, oh, that's not a real job. Um, I feel that most people don't actually say that. I feel that it's more kind of us in our own heads thinking about that. And I'm talking about this because I feel it is connected with, the feeling of being happy. Because sometimes we're not happy because we judge ourselves, and so we don't make the choice that we want to make, for example, being an actor, because we feel that, oh, I wouldn't be a proper person, a proper adult, if I did that. Like, that doesn't make sense. It's a very childish thing to do, isn't it? You can't just do whatever you want. You want to get a real job. Any of that sound familiar? Maybe it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. But for some people it does, and for many people, and so that has an impact. The self labeling. It's very powerful what we do to ourselves with our mind. And again, that is a lot of work that you need to do on yourself that has to do with the unfulfilled need, your need of approval, your need of attention, your need of recognition, of respect, whatever that is, whatever your unfulfilled need is something for you to figure out. And where does it come from? It doesn't come from you. Spoiler alert. It's not you. You're not born with an unfulfilled need. Your need wasn't fulfilled. And so somebody else led you to believe that. Not necessarily on purpose, but something happened in your life, probably when you were a child, and you believed that you couldn't be happy. You didn't deserve approval. You didn't deserve attention. You didn't deserve to be seen, to be heard, or you didn't deserve to be safe, protected, loved, or more specifically creative, or the provider, or whatever it is. So yeah, all of that is for you to figure out if you want to be happy. It's not an easy journey to be happy. It seems counterintuitive, but that's actually how it works. I'm very happy to say that if I die tomorrow, I'll be happy. I'll have had a happy life, And I've realized this a few years ago, and I keep, thinking about it every now and again, and I'm like, yes, if I die tomorrow, I'm good. And it's a nice thing. It's a very nice thing, isn't it? To be able to say that. I'm very proud of myself for having brought myself to this point in my life where I'm responsible for my own life. It doesn't mean that I'm 100% happy about everything. It doesn't mean that there's not stuff that I want to improve and that I don't want to get somewhere. But it means that I've done and I'm doing all my best to get to that place, and I'm giving myself self-compassion. I'm giving myself compassion and grace for all the hard work that I've put in my life. And so yes, there's sacrifices, there's stuff that's tricky. And sometimes it's like, I feel overwhelmed, I feel tired, I feel sad, I feel upset. That's all part of life. That is being alive. But at least it's part of my journey, of my choices. I'm not dependent on somebody else's choices. I made myself this person. Nobody taught me to be this person that I am right now. I've learned from people. I learned from, family and friends and teachers and experiences. But I have learned, and that is pivotal, that you can learn. You allow yourself to learn that. And when you learn, you allow yourself to be happy. When you learn, you allow yourself to be happy. Take that time to get there. Also, more specific things on how to be happy. Setting boundaries, setting a safe space. Making sure that there are things that you're like, this is stuff that I want to, challenge myself with. Yes, okay, I'm willing to be uncomfortable and work on this and grow. Right? I'm not willing to do that. That's fine. If you ask yourself why, and you make sure that you realize, and that's true, you have genuine reasons to not want to go to some sort of area that's too triggering, that's too painful for you, then that's fine. That's called setting boundaries. And you can do that in even relationships in general. Everything is connected, but it's very important to feel safe. What's your home? What's your space where you're like, I'm fine here, I'm protected here? Then if you That can be a physical space, your actual home, um, or not your home. It can be somewhere else, and maybe a place where you paint or rehearse or are creative, or you walk by the sea, by the shore, or in the woods, or somewhere where it's like I take some time to do this, to just detach from your 9 to 5 job, and it's like it's too much, so I'm gonna take this time for me. And you can do this every day or once a week. I do recommend doing this. Is a really great exercise. Just take that time to take your inner child out, essentially, to enjoy your creativity, either by being creative, but it can just be literally a walk in the woods. Okay, it doesn't have to be, oh, be creative, oh my god, I have to produce something. There's nothing to produce. Okay, production is not a word that we want to hear in this kind of exercise. This is a space for you to be safe and stay with yourself. So it can literally be listen to music, it can be a walk in the woods, it can be go for a swim in the sea. I do usually suggest contact with nature because I feel it's really powerful and beautiful. But it can be anything. It can be you in a room writing, or reading a book. If you never read a book because you don't have the time, then maybe finding an hour to read a book a week would be something. I don't know. Find what works for you. It doesn't have to be the same every week. Change it. But this is part of your growth. Doing something for you. You're doing it for you. It's for nobody else. It's not to produce anything. It doesn't have to be something that people will see later. It doesn't matter. It's for yourself. This and the writing the pages are two very powerful exercises that you should be doing. Both of these are actually exercises that are suggested by the book by Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. I do recommend that book 200%. So do that book if you haven't done it. It's a book that you do. The importance of setting boundaries is a big deal. Yeah. Making sure that there is stuff that you want to work on and stuff that it's like, I'm not ready for this. That is fine. And that is fine with any coach, especially if you do any, drama, especially if you do method acting. But in general, setting boundaries is important. Okay. As a coach, I'm very mindful of my students' boundaries. If somebody tells me I don't want to work on that, I'll be like, fine, that's okay. I'll suggest ways to work around it if I can. But it's up to you. The work that you want to do is up to you. You are the one who's on this journey. The choice is all yours. I can help you figure out what's the best choice to do in certain circumstances. But essentially, you're the one on this journey. I'm not. I'm helping you. I'm looking at you. And so in a way, I'm doing that journey with you, but from sort of afar. I can see you doing it, but I'm not in the journey. So you're the only one who knows everything, more or less, consciously. But you may not know, but you know. So it's you, the one who has to figure stuff out. And as a coach, what I can do is feel if something is coming up that you might not realize and tell you, look, I'm feeling this now. And that may help you. And this is the power of feedback, of course. But essentially, it's your choice. So setting boundaries is a very, very powerful thing to do. It's a very powerful thing to do in relationships as well. You know what? In fact, let's talk about that too, because that's what we do in my chats. I talk about different concepts because everything is connected. So yes, how to be happy also includes, relationships. And that includes setting boundaries in relationships. How can you be happy? Well, first of all, if you're yourself, if you're working on yourself, that is a great way to establish a new relationship because you are happy with yourself. You're working on yourself, right? For me, that's one of the most attractive things in a person. Somebody who's working on themselves. They value themselves. They give themselves grace. They don't just assume that they are this powerful being that don't need help and that don't need they don't need growth, that's, annoying, boring, just uninteresting, right? Whereas it's much more interesting and fascinating when somebody's opening up, being vulnerable, and telling you, look, I'm struggling with this now. I'm really trying to be happy, and I'm trying to do my best to let go of this thing that I do and let go of this thing that I think it's important, because I think actually there's something else that's more important. That strikes much more interesting conversations. And if in a relationship we are both doing that with ourselves, we have stuff to share. We have, we can compare notes on our journeys, on our individual journeys, and we can resonate with each other. We can empathize, and we can support each other, and that's beautiful. Setting boundaries is very important as well, because how do I know, especially if it's the beginning of a relationship, you might not know, oh, am I going to say or do something that's going to be hurtful, where I want just to support this person? Well, that's the thing. If the communication is good, and if I know myself and I'm working on myself, then I'll be able to communicate better and better. So the more you know yourself and the more you learn to communicate properly without being hurtful, the more the other person will know what it is that has an impact on you in a good or in a bad way. And so they will be able to then help you and support you and be there for you in the way that you actually need. Therapy is a great way to, become a better person. For sure. I always recommend doing therapy at some point in your life. Big fan of that. Couples therapy can also be good. Say that you are in a relationship for some time and you hit a rough spot and you feel like, oh, it's tricky to get out there of this spot. It's tricky to get out of this spot. Well, couples therapy can be really powerful. I do recommend that. Essentially, what you want in any relationship, if you want it to work, is having communication, trust. And that's it. Essentially, that's what you want. Of course, love is given for granted. You need to love each other. Otherwise, why you're in the relationship? But that's, yeah. But if you want it to work, then love and communicate. Then if you want the relationship with the person you love, and we're talking about any kind of relationship here, it doesn't have to be, partnership or, husband, wives material. We're talking about friendships. We're talking about anyone who can love. Friendship is a form of love. Okay. So we're talking about any relation between people. Anything, any sort of any sort of relationship with a person that you love has to have communication and trust in it. Of course, especially if it's somebody that you live with this person and you share many more things with this person. So we're talking about a life partner. Of course, it's going to be even more, just because you share so much more with this person, and because there's psychological things that come into play, which is projections and other things. So it makes it much more complicated. So if you're able to trust the person and communicate properly, that will help a lot. One of the things that really help is believe that the person has the best intentions when they talk to you. So if they give you any form of feedback or they tell you something that seems hurtful, take a beat and think again, because it might be that, try and assume that they're trying to speak with best intention. So, with best intentions. That's one of my practices that I think it's really powerful. Try to start with that. It usually helps. Even with friends, if sometimes somebody's like, I didn't like that comment, then maybe, take a beat and think about it. What if this person meant it in a good way? Doesn't mean that you can't, later go and speak to that person and say, look, I would have rather that you said it in a different way, or that you didn't say this at this time. That's, you can always do that. And that's part of good communication and setting boundaries. So that's really good. But what I'm saying is also, don't jump straight away to the conclusion where, oh, that was hurtful. Why did you say that? That was really bad of that person to say that to me. Take that time to think, well, they meant well. What they meant to say was something else, maybe. Or maybe they said the right thing, but for your own projection, that sounded like he was scolding me, he was telling me off, right? Whereas they weren't. Maybe they were just being straight with you, and you didn't like that, right? And that again has to do with your own projections. That has to do with your unfulfilled needs. Who tends to, that happens to me. That happens to me a lot, where I feel like, it's triggering when somebody tells me, oh, you've done that wrong, because it has to do with my need of approval. And so for me, that's automatically like saying, oh, you're no good. Right? And so that's my own work. That's myself having to take a beat and being like, okay, this person is not saying that I'm a bad person just because I did something not in the best way, in their opinion. They're trying to give me their feedback. That can happen. That should happen, because we are meant to talk to each other. We are meant to say stuff to each other. And we're just not gonna like everything that people say to us. It doesn't mean that they are bad people, and it doesn't mean that one of us is wrong necessarily. It could be that we are both wrong or both right. What matters is that we empathize with each other. We try not to hurt each other, and we try not to take hurt, not to take offense where it doesn't belong. Of course, if something is repeatedly happening, that's more of a red flag, right? Because if we repeatedly feel like somebody's, scolding us, then maybe they are. Chances are that they are. And so you might want to rethink, why is that person in your life? But I would say my philosophy is try not to do that first. First try and if that person is in your life and you chose for that person to be in your life, of course, that comes from the perspective of myself being quite selective with the people in my life. So if somebody is there and is somebody that I do go to and talk to, then I value that presence, which means that sometimes I might be like, okay. But that doesn't mean that I don't love them. It doesn't mean that they don't love me or they don't appreciate me. So, take that time. That's very important, to not be super, not allow your shadow to get in the way straight away, because that's what it is. It's the parts of you that get in the way. One thing that I do in the check-in and check-out of my courses, and I think it's quite good to do in any session, it's about being aware of what's going on inside you. And there is a process to do that. I break it down into steps. So I have a step 1, which is acknowledge. Step 2, which is identify. And then step 3, analyze, basically. This is in broad terms. I'm going to talk about it in a different chat. But these are very important because it helps you understand what's going on inside you. And if you understand what's going on inside you, then you have a chance of being happy. When we don't feel good, when we feel upset or overwhelmed, what do? How do we understand what's going on inside us? How do you understand yourself? I think that's a very powerful one. How do you understand what's going on through you? How do you become self-aware? How do you know, how do I feel right now, for real? And so how do I make the right choice based on what I'm feeling right now? And I'm being respectful of my own emotions in a day that might be more difficult than another day, for example. How do I make sure that I take care of myself? And this is for everyone, like say that you're an actor, that you're on a film set and you have to be on it, or you work on a very demanding job when you have to be on it, and sometimes you just feel very low and it's really difficult and you have your personal issues, and how do you manage that? That's for a different chat, I'm afraid. But thank you for being here. Let me know in the comments if you felt that any of this was helpful. Um, Tell me if you feel happy in life. If you don't feel that if you die tomorrow, you would have done enough in your life, then what would you do right now to change that? One little thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a big thing, but it can be a little step, a little thing. Think about that. Just write it down, put it in the comments, and maybe do it if you can, or not. Just write it down. Just something to think about. Let me know if anything else resonated. It was great to do this chat with myself, and I hope I kind of felt people chatting as well, so I hope that was the case. Yeah, speak soon. Mwah. Ciao.